Kaylin, tell me what it means when someone says they want multiple streams of income. Tell the people. Why do the people need multiple streams of income?
COVID says it all. What's the difference between having an LLC for your business and being trademarked?
For me, I'm trying to get multiple streams of income because I'm trying to retire early. 62, can't do it.
All right, welcome to another episode on the Stream Chasers Show. You got myself, Kaylin.
I'm Candace Williams.
And we got another great episode. You know how we typically start things off. We always got to check in with each other. Mm-hmm. Candace, what's been going on these last few weeks?
Let me tell you something. So I was the guest a couple weeks ago, and Kaylin was just like dropping bombs over Baghdad on my head about what I needed to be doing next. And I have been in the trenches. Okay. So like as soon as I went home, like I sat with that weekend and I got on LinkedIn, I found all the buyers at Michael's and was like, we sending messages. So I crafted a message. I spammed the buyers at Michael's. Up next is Hobby Lobby coming straight to you. And then I started working on researching how to get pretty prints in with like brand ambassadorships. So I'm thinking, we were talking about wedding planners, etc. So I've been thinking about and researching how wedding planners structure their business such that I can fit a brand ambassadorship, because you don't see a lot of wedding planners with brand ambassadorships. So trying to figure out how to work that in the right way, calling a few that I know, asking them about their vendor lists and how they do things so that I can get ready to create my message to do my things. Okay, I'm ready. Yeah. Sis is coming. Okay. How about you?
I believe it. No, so the last few weeks, I've just pretty much been gearing up for some new services to roll out on GoStretch. Oh, true. And I also have been grinding on the new website. And I might add, like, the joint is pretty tight.
Come on.
And it's so tight to me right now that I'm blown what the current website looks like, which I thought was tight at first.
Okay.
But now it's like, I don't even want to push nobody to that website that's out there now. So that's causing me to put in so much work. Okay. So I can hurry up and get it published. So then I can start routing a lot of people
to the website.
Don't
be mad. It's a continuous process. I actually, through my doing my things with the brand ambassadorship and all that, I've started working on my personal website too and adding an extra tab. So like, you want to be a brand ambassador, click here, like adding extra pages and moving stuff around. And I also was like, man, this website all right, but it's not, I'm not going to call it crap because it's not crap. I've seen crap, but it's like, it's not what I thought it was at first, but I've learned that this stuff is an art, so it's continuous, you continually crafting your situation, so don't be too hard on yourself.
No, so you might want to watch what you just say when you say don't be too hard on yourself, because I know you're very big on typography and everything.
Yes.
So again, I created this website probably 2019, the end of 2019. And like I said, it's pretty nice. You know what I'm saying? Like, it got some nice features, stuff like that. But when I tell you, when I'm going back and looking at this stuff, it's like, what was I thinking about? I got about like 5 different fonts on this thing.
So you were doing too much.
Doing too much.
Dial
and
it
it's
back.
Like, so now it's like the website is like just concise. The colors looking good. I got like organization things. It's just like, 2 fonts.
Come on. That's all you need. That's all. Dial it back, folks.
And
dial it back.
And then I was like, literally, I lied to you not. I was like, what would Candace do?
Come on.
So then, because like I said, I know you're big in this whole typography thing. So then, like, I had Googled the font that I was using. Then I was like, what font pairs well with this other font? And then it gave me the answer. And I'm like, why didn't I do this a year and a half ago?
I'm ready to stand up and give you applause.
I said, it looked good.
Yes, I believe you. I'm ready to stand up and give you applause. People don't know fonts pair together. Like, some people even sell their fonts in pairs. So, with sans and without sans and all that different kind of stuff. Like, there are fonts that go together that blend seamlessly. But I'm so proud of you.
Yeah, so
yes, I am.
So like I said, I'm just ready to get that out there.
Yeah.
Because with that comes some new services. And then I told my wife, it's like, our prices, because the price is about to increase. Our prices just off the website going to be justified.
Come on.
it's out there. You know what I'm saying?
Let me get on the roster before the prices go up. Let me get stretched out. I woke up the other morning and was like, ooh, I need to go see Mickey.
But yeah, so that's what's been on my list of to-dos over the past few weeks, among other things. But that's my priority.
Okay, I'm not mad at it.
But yeah, so after we've already tag up with each other, like I said, we have a great episode that we want to bring to you, and it's based on like the world of business development, contracting. There's a lot of people in our area specifically. So we're in the DMV area. That's the DC metro area, where we're dominated by the government.
Yep.
And in our area, if you're not familiar, it's a thing. Like if you want to have a business, a consultant business, or any type of business, to be honest, it's like, oh yeah, I'm trying to get this contract. Like everybody says that. Yeah. But not that many people have the contract, but everybody says it. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I got to get that contract, or you got to go get you a contract.
Yeah, the government dollar reigns supreme in this area. We've talked about it before. We talked about it with Blake and Keys, how some people prefer contract dollars versus like a steady, versus like a working with the market. Whatever the market's doing, like swinging, the contract dollar is a steady dollar. Like, what it's going to be doing for the next foreseeable future, 3, 4, 5 years, whatever it is. And a lot of people in this area and in certain pockets of the United States where there are big government bases and big government presence, are looking to work with the government to get that steady dollar.
Yeah. So, like I said, that's what we got on hand for you today. I'm sure you all are going to get a lot of great information. Yeah. But now I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Candace.
Okay. So, when we get into the professionals, we like to read a professional bio. So that's because we want to let you know that the person that we're bringing to you has the skills and experience, and that we're not just talking.
Ain't telling you some nonsense.
Exactly. So I'm going to read the bio of our guest. Miss Dorice Kenely has over 17 years of experience in federal government acquisitions as a contract specialist, grants officer, contracting officer, and policy analyst. Dorice worked with the Department of State, the Administrative Office of U.S. Courts, the Department of Navy's Office of Naval Research. The Navy got an Office of Naval Research, okay? Wait a minute now, I didn't put my phone off. Wait a minute. She also has worked with the U.S. Department of Transportation's Federal Transit Administration. All of this before joining NASA. Okay, so the government, she knows them. Okay, yes. She knows them well. Dorice received a master's in public communications from American University, a master's certificate in federal government contracting from the George Washington University School of Business, and a bachelor's degree in business administration from Marymount University. Sis got degrees. Okay. During her government tenure, Dorice has awarded contracts, grants, and cooperative agreements for a sundry of goods and services, including research and development, using all contract types from pre-solicitation to closeout. Ms. Kenely believes that continuous learning is the key to perpetual growth, which is why she has chosen a career in acquisitions management. Now, what is not in Ms. Kenely's bio, because all the things are in there. Yes. But what's not in there is that she is also the owner of Kenely Consulting, helping the small businesses out here get the government contracts, okay?
Get no strings.
Come on. Here we are. Miss Kenely.
Yay! Hello. I am so honored to be here.
Well, we're honored to have you.
Thank you for joining us.
Somebody with that bio should have cost us money.
Yeah.
After looking at the Stream Chasers episodes, I was like, I don't know. Should I be? Do I fit? But then when you were the bio, I said, okay, I think I can flow with some of the other guests.
Sound good, don't it?
Yes, exactly. Kim said on our episode about charging your worth in the workplace, get your coin, sis. So that's what we're reading your accolades. Accept those accolades.
Kim and I think Casey.
Casey, yes.
Yeah.
And she studied.
Yeah. That's what we love.
I'm a fan.
Yes.
A fan and a follower.
Exactly.
Yes. Hello, everyone. I am Dorice Kenely, or Reese. We're all friends now, right?
Yes.
Proprietor, owner, CEO of Kenely Consulting, as Candace said, helping small businesses get government contracts and thus increase their streams, increase their business, grow their business.
Okay.
As a former contracting officer, I'm no longer a contracting officer, so I no longer have any conflict of interest. The ethics office is very familiar with Kenely Consulting. I report every year, but since I am no longer substantially involved in the awards of contracts, I'm actually not involved at all in the award of contracts.
Okay.
So I can consult and advise small businesses on breaking down the government minutia, the government copy paste errors, the government federal acquisition regulation. I can assist. So I've effectively parlayed all that experience as a CO into being able to consult and help small businesses understand how to navigate the contracting process.
Okay, so
Come on.
So before we really start diving into it, so I think I heard Candace say you had an MBA from.
No, I have a bachelor's in business.
Okay, so a bachelor's in business. So what led you down the road of getting into contracts? Because, well, nowadays there are majors or like concentrations if you want to study contracting. But at least I know when I was in school, there isn't no disciplines for contracting. So how did you choose to be a business major and then come out going into contracts and then clearly loving it? Yeah,
that's a great question because I landed in contracts. So I graduated in 2003, so a post 9/11 era. I started studying business with the intent to go to law school. Then I fell in love with marketing and was like, oh no, I think I'm going to get my MBA or somewhere thereabouts. And I ended up going into or getting a master's in communications, studying at AU, which has an awesome communications program that would allow me to teeter on that cusp of advertising and public communications. But coming out of school, undergrad, in a post 9/11 era, it's like get in where you fit in terms of a job. And I had the opportunity of coming out of DC public schools. Thank you very much. No shade. It has done me well. But
Which one? Just curious.
I went to Wheatley.
Okay.
I went to Hine, and I went to Eastern. E-ball, shout out, class of 99.
The Ramblers.
Yeah.
The Ramblers. That's
Eastern
right.
Ramblers.
That's right. So coming out, going to Eastern, I was in the pre-law academy. And that gave us an opportunity. All the students had an internship. So I interned with government. So that got my feet wet in government. And also a couple of law firms too. Great program. But having gotten my feet wet in government and impressed the folks at the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, shout out to them, they obliged me and brought me back in right after graduation because I didn't have a job yet. So while there, though, I knew I didn't want to, and after giving Marymount about $100,000, I didn't want to have the title of office automation clerk. And there's nothing wrong with that title, but after having given Marymount $100,000, I wanted to have a career befitting of that type of bill that was hanging over my head.
Yeah.
So I started studying, government. Now that I was in the government, it's like government careers that align with marketing or business. And a lot of things came up. Contracting officer, contract specialist was one of them. That was in the rankings, if you will. There was a couple others. I can't even recall them at this time. But I started looking at all of them. Yeah. What does it entail? What type of job? What type of work would you do? Any continuous learning? What did it entail?
Right.
Contracting office, contract specialist, contracting officer, acquisition professional. It had so much continuous learning that was required of it. And then it had only 1 million jobs open on USAjobs.gov. I said, this might be it. Yeah. Because I believe in perpetual learning. Yeah. Right. Yeah. It was and then it provided a lot of lateral and upward growth.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I think I'm going to tap into this. And it just so happens that at the OCC as an office automation clerk, I was also doing some of, which I didn't know at that time, procurement work. I was preparing recs. I was assisting the purchase card holder in the office. So it kind of allowed me to get some, which I didn't know at the time, was experience to get me into procurement. Okay. So I started seeking out jobs in procurement for those reasons, because I could grow, because there were jobs available, and because of the continuous learning.
Gotcha. Okay.
Big one being they was available.
Yeah. and then, like you mentioned, it's like now we have so many programs surrounding it. But back then...
It's amazing.
Yeah. Back then, I didn't even know. I was like, what? Contract?
Yeah.
Like, I don't even remember. I had one class. For those of you who don't know, I went to school for business as well. I had one class in my junior year that was like government contracts, and it was like government, contracts, and law. It was like all rolled into one. So we spent this much time on contracts and rolled right through it. And from that, I did not ever gather that I would be doing it. So
Now, same for me. Like, I think I remember, like you said, the most contracts that I talked about was in my business law class, which I couldn't stand. It was like one of the worst classes. And then all I remember about a contract, and this is how I was not the most studious person.
Okay.
All I remember about that class was like a contract. You had to have an offer and acceptance. And that was all I took from that class.
Oh, no.
And I barely passed it.
Okay. Well, given that you only remember offer and acceptance, I see.
But yes, so I tip my hat to y'all in that contract.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so now we know how you landed in contracts. Now, before we dive into, let's say how, because I mean, the point of this is for our small business entrepreneurs who are looking at this to say, okay, because a lot of us, you hear, I want that contract, or I got to get that government contracts money. I mean, I know what they want to know from you. So before we can even secure a contract, like how does one even know what the government is trying to buy? Can I sell my goods to the government? I know the answers to this, by the way. I don't want y'all to think I don't. I'm asking our guests. Okay.
Now, you as PPE or you?
No, well,
random?
me as PPE can't sell stationery to the government. I know that. But me as random
so let's
IT.
use me.
Yes, there we go. Let's use Kalen's business, Go Stretch, right? Or let's use even his Pivotal Video business, right? So he's doing videography. Can I sell my goods to the government? How do I get Pivotal Marketing Group? Isn't it Pivotal Marketing?
Pivotal Video Group. Pivotal
Video Group. How do I get them in front of the government? Okay,
so the government is very direct in that they cite their need and say, we have a need for, in most cases, in almost all cases, unless we're talking about grants, but we're talking about contracts right now. The government will say, I have a need for, and they would make this advertisement widely on what they call the government point of interest, federal business opportunities.
Okay.
And I want to give you guys the URL, but I can't even call it off the top of my head because it's changed.
FBO.gov?
It's changed recently, but go to FBO.gov and it'll reroute. Yes, it has SAM in it. But go to FBO.gov and it'll reroute you to the new SAM address that they recently changed. And that's where you're going to find the government point of entry. Like, you can enter the government by looking at these requirements or RFPs, requests for proposals, solicitations, RFQs, requests for quotes. You'll find them widely on FBO. However, you could also, because FBO, in accordance with the FAR, the Federal Acquisition Regulation, so that's our contracting Bible. Contracting officers have to abide by the FAR. And if you want to get into government business, it's good to have at least a working knowledge of the FAR. And that's where Kenely Consulting comes into play. But we'll get to that in a moment. But on FBO, requirements only have to go or are required to go to FBO once they reach a certain threshold, which is the simplified acquisition threshold, $250K.
Okay.
However, but there are other thresholds at which government agencies have to post in a public place, which government agencies often use their website to do that.
Okay.
So if it's not a high dollar requirement,
right,
over $250K, you want to do some research to see, for example, your business, your radiography business. I know one of the former agencies I worked for, the Administrative Office of U.S. Courts, they did a lot with videography. They had a studio in their building. So you do some research to find out, okay, what agency would be good for me. You know, if you're doing something with health, you know, it can be as broad and as simple as health. And let me check out HHS. Housing, let me check out HUD. And you can go to their website and see those requirements that are posted that are under the current simplified acquisition threshold of $250K.
Right.
Also, though, a great connect for small businesses is the Small Business Administration.
Okay.
SBA, federal SBA, as well as your local state SBA, Small Business Administration. They post a lot. They do webinars. As a matter of fact, federal SBA does every first Wednesday. They do a webinar. They do a webinar series, and they give a lot of great information to small businesses. So get connected to SBA.
So you mean to tell me that I can't just call my local contracting officer and tell her or him that I own Pivotal Video Group and that I would like Pivotal Video Group to do their next ad because I seen them on TV and they need me?
Listen, you can absolutely do that. I don't think you'll be very successful. But let me, to that point though, we're being facetious right now. Like, don't just go calling up random contracting officers. However, there is a way to secure business that way.
Okay.
Because in the federal government, with the Federal Acquisition Regulation, as small businesses, Part 19, Federal Acquisition Regulation, the FAR, Part 19, deals with socioeconomic programs that are geared toward ensuring that businesses of a certain socioeconomic status, women-owned, small disadvantage, veteran-owned businesses, there are certain set-asides that can be set aside for those businesses. So when you do something like call random contracting officer at HUD, at the AO, sometimes that can fall on deaf ears. But if you have a nice capability statement, you have a good pitch, you can at least email, because you probably aren't going to get a CEO on the phone, as you know. But you can email, you can fax that information to them. And because of those socioeconomic programs, you could potentially gain business that way. Now, I'm not saying you're going to hit every time on that, but this is something you want to be mindful of, because under those specific socioeconomic categories, there are set-asides for those businesses, and you could potentially hit that way.
And there's a, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't there a specific percentage that every agency has to meet?
Absolutely.
So like SBA on the federal side, they might say 8% of their federal opportunities has to go to a woman-owned small business or something like that. And that's supposed to be across the board in all agencies, correct?
That's right. Every year, and we're actually going through that time now, SBA negotiates with each agency how much, what percentage for each socioeconomic program must go to that particular business. So government agencies are motivated to meet these goals. So it is definitely an opportunity there to give your capability statement to your local agent or to a federal agency. And then also about 2 years ago, the OMB, Office of Management and Budget, created a position for each federal agency. Well, it's not a new job position. Oftentimes it's tacked on to another person's job, me. And the title is Industry Liaison. So I'm tasked with, it was just removed from my portfolio, and I'm grateful for that, because you don't want to be overloaded with this particular duty. You want to give care to it. And you're tasked to be the industry liaison, the person who within my current agency, and each agency has one, that is whose job it is to put a small business in right contact with a person within the agency that can directly assist them in doing business with that particular agency.
So that's the real plug.
Yes.
That's the plug.
And that list is on OMB's website.
Did you hear what she said?
For each agency.
For each agency.
Did you hear?
Actually, my name might still be listed out there for my agency, because it just got removed from me.
I will be on there this week.
Type in Google search Office of Management and Budget Industry Liaison. And then one page that lists each agency's industry liaison.
Now, if you get a response, that's a totally different thing.
Oh, no, you will get a response.
From the industry liaison.
Oh, yes, right.
But not necessarily from that contracting officer.
That's correct. But
you got to shoot your shot. You got to roll the dice. You may get something.
Yeah. And I would say, because we have quarterly meetings in which we're encouraged to make sure that the people, because I'm the industry liaison but not a CEO, but I make sure I put the business in contact with a person that can directly help them.
Gotcha.
And that's what we're doing at my agency. And I know agencies that the industry liaison, they have created a position for them. For me, it was another duty tacked on. They have people that are industry liaisons at various agencies, I won't call it out, that are even more vigilant than me, hosting specific events and bringing contractors in. So definitely look into that. I didn't even think about that when we discussed that before. But yeah, your industry liaison is a huge help.
I'm about to add that to my resume. So the reason I say so is because, for context, right? I work at DC Public Schools. I am a contracting officer there. And because of that, and we had, so just so you know, each local jurisdiction is also responsible for doing a similar situation. So Reese is talking towards federal governments. I work for the local government. So there's PG County, Moco, Howard County, DC, et cetera, et cetera. In DC, there's also what you would call like a local SBA. It's the Department of Small and Local Business Development. And again, annually, each agency in DC is tasked with setting aside a goal for small business. Now, they don't get as granular as the feds where they say this much for women, this much for minorities, this much for blah, blah, blah. They just say your agency goal for small businesses as a whole is this percentage, right? So with that, we are informally tasked with responding to industry when they call. So I am the CEO that if you call me, I'm going to respond. Now, I will not necessarily respond in 24 hours, but I will respond to you as soon as I'm able to put you in contact with or to give you the next step as to how we do procurement, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So industry liaison being an actual role in the feds is something that I'm going to look up. I'm going to find the position description. I'm going to add it to my resume because that's what I do.
It's absolutely a thing.
And it's tiresome is what it is.
It sounds like it.
Yes.
It sounds like it.
It is.
So now I'm going to back you up because in the middle of what you said make sure you send your capability statement to your contracting officer. What that is.
A capability statement. It's like a resume for your company.
Oh.
You want it to be very succinct and organized. You want to hit on the high points. You want to list your NAICS code.
Okay.
Are we familiar?
No, we're not. What is a NAICS code?
A NAICS code, I done walked myself into a national, I forget what the acronym stands for, but it's a code. It's a list of 1,000 numbers, and the code represents the business area, if you will, that your company addresses.
Exactly.
IT, you have IT NAICS, you have business admin NAICS, you have agricultural NAICS,
consulting
NAICS. If you look up NAICS, NAICS.com, it'll list all the NAICS codes. And so you want to have your NAICS codes on your capability statement. A lot of people like to show off and talk about which government agencies they work for in bullet form. That shows credibility. You want to talk about on your NAICS and bullet form or short paragraph form what your company specializes in. It's a brag sheet or resume, if you will. All in one page would be great. That's best, to show what your business can do. And if you have one of those great socioeconomic categorizations, if you are a women-owned business, if you are a small disadvantaged business, if you are fortunate enough to be an 8A business, you want to specify that on your capability statement, because that's going to be your selling point. If you're veteran-owned, that's a huge selling point. If you have any of those classifications, I implore you to get a capability statement, because those are the ones that are most successful when you send to the contracting officer, because it makes the federal government's contracting officer job easier.
Exactly.
If you're an 8A company, if you're a veteran-owned company, if you're a hub zone company, like Caitlin mentioned about all these various percentages that we have to meet, and you hit on that too. When the government has that in front of them and we work toward that and we get a capability statement of a viable company that meets one of those socioeconomic categories, we can do, in most cases, a direct award.
Yes.
To that and for 8A contractors specifically, we can do a direct award.
Exactly.
So.
And I would say at the local level, that we don't do NAICS codes, they do NIGP codes, which stands for something I can't remember, but it is very similar. There's a 3-code classification that gets into all the areas of business areas. I call them service lines that you might provide. So just as a quick hint, with your NIGP codes, anything from 100 to 800 is product in the 800 classification. 900 and below are service classifications, just to make it easier in your searching. And then there's you can make it even 5 digits, so it's 3 digits dash another 2 digits, and that gets into a more specified type. So for example, if you sell ballpoint pens, your NIGP code would be 264, right? But if you sell blue ballpoint pens, it's 264-02, right? So that's how that works. But again, on your classification sheet, if you classification sheet on your sheet, that your resume, what is it?
Your capability statement.
Capabilities. Thank you. My brain went blank for a second. On your capability sheet, if you intend to also work with local government, I would tell you to also add your NIGP codes, because the local governments use NIGP as opposed to NAICS codes. There's the difference.
So NAICS, North American Industry Classification System.
There you go. And I think NIGP is National Intergovernmental Purchasing, because local government. Yeah. You know?
Okay. So real quick. So you mentioned, if you, or once you get connected to the person that, knows about some of the opportunities, you would submit your capability statement. Is that the first step, or do I need to be registered first to do business with the government?
Great question. Let's start there. To do business with the federal government, you absolutely need to be registered. You need to be a legitimate registered business.
Okay. And how do you, where do I register? Is that like registering for, just registering my business, just with the state, or it's different?
So I'm registered with the state, right? But also you want to be registered in sam.gov.
Sam.gov.
And just like that, sam.gov.
Yes.
And that's required on the federal level. I think they have a little more bandwidth required on the local level.
It's required on the local level too. We do what we call federal debarment checks. So if for some reason something goes wrong and you get debarred from doing business with the government, your name will also be on sam.gov, but not in a good way.
Correct. You'll be on the excluded parties list.
Exactly.
And no one will do business with you.
Exactly. Not even the local government.
Not even the local government.
Let's stay away from that. Okay. So yes, you want to register with sam.gov. Now, I'm registered, right? So now I've done my LLC or my Inc., right? I'm registered with my state. I've registered on sam.gov. I've gone to Fed BizOps and I've seen an opportunity. I am a small woman-owned business, but I haven't gone to the SBA yet. I haven't told the SBA that I'm a small women-owned business. Does that still count?
Currently, I have the opportunity of working on the FAR small business team. So some cutting edge news, although it is public knowledge because it's on the Federal Register. But currently, a woman-owned business can self-certify. Oh, okay. But in a matter of 6 to 12 months, the women-owned certification classification will be managed by the SBA. But right now, as a woman-owned business, you can self-certify, and it goes in the women-owned repository. You still want to report that to SBA. Okay. And you're good to go. Okay. But you do want to be mindful. That's why it's good to be familiar with the Federal Register, because that is where government policy meaning a regulatory policy that ends up in the Federal Acquisition Regulation. Be familiar with the federalregister.com, because cases are posted there. A case is a subject matter that will later end up in the FAR. Okay. It's called a FAR case. Okay. So this is I'm doing a sidetrack, so don't let me veer off too far. Okay. But I mentioned that because the regulatory government policy writing process is inclusive of everyone. It's public.
Me too.
You too.
Okay.
And you too.
Okay.
So when everyone here, when a case is opened or subject matter is brought to a FAR team or the CAC, the Civilian Acquisition Agency Council, when a subject matter is brought to them, and for small businesses, Part 19 and Parts 19 and 26, it typically starts from SBA policy, which is also in the Federal Register. When a case is opened, we have a comment period, a public comment period that lasts a minimum of 60 days. All the questions that come in regarding that policy, for example, the fact that now women-owned small businesses will have to go through SBA or one of their noted partners to be certified. That case was open to the public and posted on the Federal Register, and we received comments to which we have to answer. Okay. Even if someone says, this is crap, what are you all doing? We literally have to answer those questions. And so my point here and takeaway here is participate in the federal regulatory policy making process, because it affects small businesses. Right. Because especially if you want to get a government contract.
So in your example, if enough folks had participated in a substantial way, it could have affected the outcome, which is now that small women businesses have to register in 6 to 12 months. But we might have been able to overturn that and left it the way that it was.
Correct.
Got it. Okay.
And also be mindful that of SBA policy. I'm talking about FAR policy, but especially with respect to parts 19 and 26, which affect small businesses. Most of our policy is funneled through the finalization of SBA policy. So lean in when SBA posts, new policy that changes their contracting Bible, which is called the Small Business Act.
Okay.
It's a lot of government terminology, but the Federal Register, note, don't forget about that. SAM.gov, don't forget about that.
Yep.
And then don't forget about your local small business organization. And then what was another thing I want to remind them of that we said earlier?
I can't remember. Fed Biz Ops.
There we go.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
So real quick, we keep saying that you gotta register to do
first.
Business first. That's first.
That's first. Step one.
Is that simple? Like from what you know, it's just like is it one of those like registration forms, name or business name, address,
FEIN?
Yeah,
it's fairly,
and then you able to do business, or do they want some like detailed information?
It's fairly simple because you have a business, so they're going to ask you questions about your business.
Okay.
It's not long, but it's not 2 minutes either, right? But it's information that you can answer about your business.
If you know your business, you should be able to answer it
absolutely
without having to run back upstairs,
absolutely,
all across the house.
Absolutely. Now, very different than, for example, something else I mentioned earlier, 8A certification. That's a whole nother more arduous process. But registering your business in SAM, you guys can definitely do that. Log on now, take a look, follow through the process, and you'll be able to do that.
Okay. All right. So I have a little background in business development work. So I know when you want to do business, you got this young, fresh entrepreneur. They're ready to do business, get these government contracts, and they're listening to you. And then they say, all right, all I got to do is register my business. But then isn't there something else when you have to go in and you need like a cage code or a DUNS number? Do you need those type of things to do business with the government as well?
That's a good question. Yes. How could we forget about the Dun and Bradstreet number?
Yeah.
You do have to apply for Dun and Bradstreet number or a DUNS number. But even that's not an arduous process.
Okay.
So the steps that you're going to encounter, what Kaylin is mentioning, some of the questions you're going to have to answer when you're registering your business on SAM.gov. But even those are pretty... I'm getting ready to say self-explanatory, but I forget that I do have about 17 years in government.
Yeah.
But Kayla's like,
No, but that's always typical. A lot of people is like, oh, it's easy. But it's like, hold on.
Is it really?
I do this every day, though.
Yeah.
Right. So I will say it's a process that you can follow. You guys are business owners already. You've done the hard part. You've done the work, right? They're doing the work. Stream chasers do the work.
Hopefully they have done the work.
This is more work.
But when you, and this is something that another... A consulting company could help you with as well, someone who does have experience under their belt. But when you start filling out that SAM.gov electronic form, take your time. You reach a point where it's like, what's your Dun and Bradstreet number? Life hack. Talk to Dr. Google. Where do I get a Dun and Bradstreet number? I'm saying, so not to minimize the process, but you can actually get through this very with ease.
And let me add that as a contracting officer, I've seen lots of businesses, right? I've seen good ones, I've seen bad ones, I've seen ones in the middle. And if the bad ones can make it through, and they do, you can definitely do this. Like, don't think of this as a super arduous process. Take some time. So if you have Saturdays where you do your admin stuff, this is one of those admin duties that you add to your list of things that you're going to do. And don't think you're going to get it done in 12 minutes, but know that it's not a process that you can definitely do.
And it's not solving for COVID, not vaccine, but COVID relief. And it's not a cancer cure. So if you get to a place where you need to stop, you can stop. It'll save your place and you come back. So don't stress out about that. You can do it like Candace said, not 12 minutes, but it's also not going to take 4 days.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And so this is the entry point, right? So now we're entering into government business. I'm on Fed Biz Ops or I'm on an agency website. where I can find business opportunities. So I found an agency. I'm going to say I found Office of the Interior. Let's say that, and they are looking for. They want to do some video marketing. So I found an solicitation, which is a solicitation is a word for people are. The government is asking for something. So they put it out there and they say they're looking for a videographer. I found it on time because I got enough time to reply. All right.
Key point
that I've given myself enough time. Let's say this is an RFQ, which stands for request for quote. So it's not as difficult to respond to as an RFP, which is request for proposal. Now what?
So now you're looking at the solicitation. Before you decide to contact Kenely Consulting,
yes,
you open the request for quote, which is, and so like Candace said, a solicitation is the government asking, which can take the form of request for quote or request for proposal, like she mentioned, also the RFP, which can be a little more involved. So we're starting with the RFQ. You open it, it can be anywhere from 5 to 10 pages. For RFQ, mostly going to be a lower end, like 5 pages, and you want to read it thoroughly. You want to start by reading it thoroughly to ensure that it is asking for a service or good that your business actually provides. Okay, because there's no shortcut. You don't get with Kenely Consulting or become my client and wave a wand and say, get me all the contracts. You have to have the qualifications, the services, the ability to provide the services that are being requested. So you want to read through that RFQ in our case, in the scenario, and make sure that they're actually wanting videography services that you've done before or can do.
Right.
Okay. And do you want to highlight the things in there in the RFQ that you're like, what? One of which is probably going to be a FAR clause that starts with 52-219 so-and-so. It's a long number, and it's going to have that number in front that I mentioned. It's going to have some words behind it describing what you as the contractor will either have to tell them in your response to them, or something you're going to have to give them at the other end of when you win, hopefully when you win the contract. Highlight those things that are like that you're like, what is this? Highlight any copy paste errors. No shade to the government, but they exist in these RFQs. All the clauses, anything in there that you find that begs a question to you, because new contractors, sometimes it looks like some sort of foreign language.
It really does.
Yeah. Those things are. Yeah.
So once you get through that and you've written down your questions and you want to seek to get answers to them, there is a question period that is noted within the solicitation. That is a point at which the government will answer all of the questions that have been submitted to them during the process. What you do not want to do is miss the period at which the question and answer period ends. Because that's where you gain a lot of knowledge from the government. Even asking a question such as line 52 is the same exact as line 56. What does that mean? They will answer that. So
and
that's a key part.
Copy paste errors.
And clear up their copy paste errors. So that's a key point in the solicitation process that is extremely helpful. The government will answer all the questions and post the questions in the same format that the RFP was posted. So wherever site you found the RFP or the RFQ in our case, you will find the answers to those questions.
Right. I would say that if you are new to government solicitations and responding to them, if you've missed the question and answer date, do a different one. That would just be my advice, right? Like you could, do what you want to do. You could use the question and answers that have already been posted, read that along with the solicitation and feel like you have a good enough understanding to go forward. But if you are new to this and not true to this, I would scratch it and say, let's do the next one that comes about.
And I've had a client that has come to me when the question and answer period has ended. The good thing is they were my client and I have tons of years of experience, humble brag. So I could navigate through the RFP and answer even the questions that he had. However, I've also had a client that said, well, I don't want to ask that question because the answer is going to be available to the public. Let me tell you something. This is not the time to pretend like we know some things. Why wouldn't they want to ask it?
Because they might think it might make them look bad.
It might make them look bad, or might give everyone else insight into the game.
How they're thinking.
Yep. Yes.
the same thing we were talking about. We talked about several different times. There are people who will not ask questions because I don't want to give away my game, right?
Yes.
Like I don't want to be specific in my question. There are also, and you have to watch out for these people, don't read the question and answers and then become intimidated. I had a contractor one time who was the incumbent. So it means that they had done every 5 years in the place that I was at, we had to resolicit for this work. The government will not give one person the work for forever. It's not how it works. So every 5 years they have to go out there and resolicit, or every couple years, depending on how long the contract is. And the incumbent, so the person who had the contract prior, would ask specifically very, very hard questions and very questions that were like in the minutia and like, so is the government gonna blah, blah, blah. And I'd be like, she knows the answers to these questions. Why is she asking it? The purpose was to scare away her competitors.
To make it seem like she already knows.
To make it seem like this is the most intense difficult job ever. It's not worth your time. You might as well leave it here, because anybody who's reading this would be like, this too much. And she would do that purposely because she knew that I had to answer the question. If she put it out there, I got to answer it. And it was a thing, and it worked. So I say that to say, don't get scared off by the question and answers.
When you have the qualifications, by qualification, I mean just the skill set, the videography skill set to answer this RFQ, do not let anything deter you from submitting a proposal in answer to this RFQ.
So quick question, but how or what does that look like for someone who doesn't have past performance in the government and they want to submit their capability statement or respond to an RFQ with no past government experience? How does that look?
Okay. And so don't let me forget to answer your question, but I want to go back. First, Candace said, you know, what do we do when we see the RFP? And I said, you read it thoroughly and you highlight the things you have questions about. And step 2 is pose those questions to the government. And now the third point is, what do you do, or to answer your question, what does one do when they don't have previous government experience? Most oftentimes you're going to have within that solicitation something you have to answer, which is going to be past performance, right? Doesn't always have to be government past performance. Oftentimes, as a former contracting officer, what we care about is relevancy and currency. How current and how relevant is your past performance.
Nice.
Even if you did it with the local mall, if you did it with, you know, McDonald's, whoever, and that's a big corporation, but if you did it with Kenely Consulting, we just want to see that the past performance that you did aligns with what we're asking here. Now, I believe as a former contracting officer in the process. So I believe that if you have the skills and you're coming with the right price, keep in mind with the government, they want everything for 2 cents. I'm being facetious, but you don't want to highball with the government. Now, charge your worth, as we've learned on a few Stream Chaser episodes. Charge your worth, but don't be excessive, because the government is looking for the best value, which means they want you to meet their need at the very lowest price possible. So if you have that past performance, even if it's not with the government, you want to display that. And so step 1, we said, you know, read the RFQ in our case, understand it thoroughly, circle, highlight any questions you have, pose those questions during the question and answer period, and answering Kaylin's question, following up, answering it more directly. You want to answer every point in the RFQ in your proposal. They're asking for past performance in reference to Kaylin's question. You want to specifically answer their past performance. Oftentimes you'll see them say past performance within the last 3 years that is relevant to this requirement.
Gotcha.
You want to answer that directly. So, and not just the past performance question, but every question that is asked in the RFQ, you want to answer it. Don't say, oh, I'm going to skip that. I mentioned that earlier on page 2. No. Answer it to the letter. This is the time where you want to follow directions down to the T. That's one thing that I do in my business. Is I answer the RFQ or RFP down to the letter, font size, page number, every past performance, title. Even something that you might think is small, they ask for a couple solicitations I've seen, more than a couple, several, ask for the name of the business owner and their contact information. And, some people say, well, it's in the email. It's on no, it needs to be where they asked for it, on the cover page.
Yeah.
Even, with my company, we already have a title page we like to use. You need to make that the second page.
Right.
And the first page needs to be exactly
what
the government asked for. And I believe in the integrity of the process. You follow everything and answer everything to the letter and have the skill set and the best price, you will win. And people say, it's about who you know. Do what I just said.
Do what I said.
Yeah.
Let me tell you why you need to do what she said. Because humble brag, sister's out here winning $80 million contracts for her clients. Okay,
$8 million. She's my best hype woman. $8 million for the base period. $14 million for the full life of the contract. Add it up.
Like that's any bad.
Right. Add it up.
80 million, 8 mil.
What did I say? Exactly. So what I'm saying is, follow the instructions, not just because she's telling you to, but because she does it and she wins, right? Also because as a contracting officer, I'm very specific about titling of what you submit to me. And the reason for that is because I'm going to copy and paste. We have an inbox where we receive all of these. I'm going to copy what I put in the RFQ. Or in the solicitation, I'm going to paste it into that inbox, and whatever comes up, that is what I'm evaluating. So if you've missed it, you might not get seen. It's just now I have somebody come behind me, double check. They double checking.
Yeah.
But I put it in quotes, and the reason I put it in quotes is because that is how I'm titling. That's how I'm titling my search, and I'm not spending all day looking for your thing because you wanted to title it something else.
And you will find in the solicitation a note. One, I won't even name the agency. It was in there 5 times that the government reserves the right to exclude a proposal if it does not meet what's requested.
Period.
So
they
that
let you know.
Yeah,
Oh,
5 times. I said, well, okay.
I heard you the first time.
And it's for a reason. It's not without merit. It's not without reason.
Because they have processes on the backside. Just like, mine is very specific to what we do at my agency, but all these agencies have processes in which they are following things, and they have setups and routines, and it's like these things are set up this way. For example, in DC, a lot of DC government solicitations, you'll see, please do not send any attachments over 25 megabytes. Is because it won't come through. And so while you think 26 is all right, like it's right around the limit, if you send it, we won't even get it.
Nope.
Can't evaluate what I don't have. So
Dang. Yeah.
And if you, one time, when I was at DOT, as a contracting officer, we received some 50 proposals. And it was not an RFQ. It was an RFP. Proposals were running up to like 50 pages, legitimately. So the contracting officer is waiting for somebody who didn't put the title on the first page.
Because I'm trying to get rid of some of these.
Get rid of some of those,
Yeah, I ain't got time to read all these.
Follow the instructions or the request, the solicitation to the letter. That's game. That's something that I'm doing in my business, and I'm hired to do because people are not as meticulous as me. Look, that's game. Get up on game. Answer every question in the RFP the way it was asked.
Got you.
Okay. So now we done registered. We done found the RFQ. We gonna do the thing. We gonna submit the RFQ with our best price because the government has 2 cents and that's all they got. And so I'm gonna give them the best price that I can do for this. Is not a haggling game. Give them your best price because now is not the time. And then what happens?
So the government. God, sometimes it's like a glacial pace, right?
Yeah.
It takes a while because the proposals are received. And then on the inside, the contracting officer evaluates to make sure the name is on the front page, evaluates to make sure you've answered certain letters of the law within the RFQ in our scenario here. And then we send off the technical portion to the technical faction within the agency who's needing these services. They evaluate based on what was detailed in the RFP. So they're very upfront about it. They'll let you know how they're going to evaluate and what they're looking for within the proposal. Okay. And the technical side does their evaluation. The contracting officer does their evaluation of price. We keep those 2 things separately so that the technical faction is not moved by how much it costs. We just need you to tell us if it's meeting your technical need. And then at some point we marry the 2 together. Well, not at some point, but very shortly thereafter, we marry the 2 together to make sure the government is getting the best value. The contracting officer lets the technical faction know which way we're going, who's going to be the winner, and then we do, or the successful offerer, and then we contact the successful offerer and let them know that they've won the government contract. It's public knowledge. That information does get posted later.
Okay.
And then
that's when the champagne happens.
And then the champagne.
That's when someone's celebrating.
Someone can celebrate. And let me put y'all up on some other game, and don't misuse this. But there is also available to small businesses, all businesses, the protest process. Now, you do not want to misuse this, because you will get known. We had an agency that was known at DOT, contractor that was known at DOT to protest everything, and you will get yourself in a bad position. Yeah. However, the protest process is available to the public to say, raise their hand and say, hey, no, I'm more qualified for that. Why didn't I get awarded that? And actually, let me back up. Before you get to the point of protesting, you can also ask for a debrief.
Yeah.
Now, I suggest that before protest.
Me too.
So that you don't have, so that you don't make a donkey out of yourself.
What happens
by protesting
in the debrief process? What they do?
In the debriefing process, you actually get to meet with the contracting officer, and sometimes the technical faction, if we trust them, will also be invited to this meeting to discuss where you were lacking in your proposal. This is also game. Get in and learn that, because that's how you say, okay, what can I do different the next time? Yeah. Also, it says, hey, look at me.
I was just getting ready to say that, because now you see me now versus just a submitted proposal package.
That's right.
Yeah.
So that's definitely game. Don't get pouty. Get game.
Yeah, take a lessons learned.
Take a lessons learned. And then if we find out that it's the contracting officer's husband that won the contract, now we can protest.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Rightfully so.
Exactly.
But again, don't go playing that card
up front.
The protest card up front and without valid reason. I only let you guys know that because it's also an opportunity for you to participate in the process, but you want to do it validly, because you will look very fraudulent if you're out here protesting for no reason. You'll cost the government money and time, and you'll find yourself never getting government business if you were doing that erroneously or maliciously, without valid intent.
Exactly.
Got you. Okay.
Beautiful.
So that was a lot of information. Good information. On how to get the government contract.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like that process from A to Z. But now let's get into more of like the business side of it from your standpoint now, because again, as someone who would be looking to get into federal contracts, you know, you mentioned something which I don't want the people out there to think it was just that simple. But when you said like, oh yeah, when you get the RFQ or if it's RFP, review it.
Oh,
like that's a lot easier said than done. Because one, you got to know what to. I mean, like you said, yeah, they gonna spell it out for you a little bit, but you got to really know how to get in. And a lot of people haven't had to sit there and read. Like if it's a RFP, that thing might be 50, 60 pages long, and you got to sit there and be able to like dive in. Now, from your experience, and of course you have your company, I would like to know, what's your thoughts on someone trying to do it themselves the first time, or should you outsource that work to somebody who knows how to do it or specializes in that? You know, and then if that is the case, what is the potential person who wants to submit to this proposal? What does that type of price look like? Because I'm trying to win a contract, but I got to dish out some money first to even get there.
That's a good point, Kaylin, because I'd say it with such ease, like, oh, just read the RFP. Yeah. It's because I've been reading RFPs and writing. Yeah. When I was a contracting officer, writing RFPs for many years now. So it does take time and a bit of experience. So I would say, and not just to, prop up my business, I would say you might want, if you're new to government, it's good to outsource that. And I'm a boutique firm, consulting agency. And so, and I do things very meaningfully. So my clients, we walk through the process together, and that's time consuming. And I don't always do what Casey said and what Kim said and charge my worth. So, but it's a new day.
So by the time y'all see this episode, the price may have gone up.
It may have gone up. But what I do charge an hourly to what I do is I read the RFP for my client. I read it thoroughly. I create a punch list. On the punch list, I'm telling them what I need from them to write the proposal successfully, but also here is some red blinking lights around a few clauses here that I want you to be aware of. So it's a learning process. Okay. Right. So I could take the proposal. You can just answer the punch list and let me write the proposal. I have a client. That's how he trusts me. The one we won the over $1 million contract for. He's like, go ahead. You know, you good. Write it. But I have another client that I'm just bringing in, and I'm going to use the term nurturing, in which we go through, she wants to go through the punch list, which I think is valuable, because then at some point she grows through and doesn't need my services anymore. I'm not intimidated by that, because someone else coming up will. And it's a testament to my firm if she can later understand and write for herself. But anyway, in that punch list, we're going through the things within the proposal that are like, hey, this is what the government's requiring. This is what will later be required. This is what this clause means. And that is an hourly rate. And do I just tell you? My hourly rate right now, as Kaylin would say, is $150 an hour, which is cheap for all these government years that I have. And these $1 million contracts that I'm winning. No.
Say it with your chest.
But it's an hourly rate, and sometimes people get sticker shock. Yeah. But I was doing some math about the return on investment.
I got my calculator. I'm ready.
Just keeps the calculator.
Come on, I'm ready.
Good, because I don't be doing quick math like that.
No, come on, I'm ready. She's a beast with it.
Come on.
My client that won the $8 million contract, and again, the $8 million is the base. If the government exercises the options, 2 option years, it'll end up being a $14 million contract.
Come on.
We have been working together for 3 years now. We worked together 2 before he won the contract. I went back and looked at my notes. I've only earned off of him, or he only paid $14,000 before he won the $8.7 million contract.
Before.
Now,
that is crazy.
Yeah, it is when I think about it. And it is when I think about the fact that I only got $14K off of that. But we'll talk about that in a minute.
Come on.
But that's before I changed my fee structure, because I was charging an hourly that was lower at that time, and a flat fee for the win. Whereas now I'm learning that to be more congruent with the work done and the contract award amount, because they're going to eat for 5 years off of the work that I did. Right.
The one time.
So to be more congruent, what I want is a percentage of the award amount. Now, I'm not talking about like 50%, of course, but I want a percentage of the award amount to be negotiated.
Because let me just do some math and just see.
That fraction is looking real crackhead-ish.
You know what you really looking like?
$8.7 million.
Yeah.
And he only invested $14,000.
Because $14 million... If we just do 1%, if we just do
don't do that, because you and I have done this, and it was very sad.
It's 140,000.
We already did that. Remember when we did that? We said we wasn't going to do it anymore because it was very depressing. Don't do that.
I need the people to know. Now she said that's 140,000, and she had said that he only paid 14. So he paid 10% of the 1%.
Dang.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to.
But it is discouraging for some, because I had a meeting with a young business owner, and he's like, well, what am I going to get until I get the win? Because mind you, I worked with my client for almost 2 years before we made that win. While it was almost 2 years, he still only sold in $14K.
Right.
It wasn't like we were writing.
Did y'all submit?
So we submitted. I did about 9 submissions. Actually, might have it. I did about 9 submissions for him, to include some responses to requests for information, as opposed to which is another type of solicitation the government does, where they say, we're building this requirement and we want to know from industry, does it make sense that we want them to build it in a year? Does it make sense that the government needs 10 people to do this? Does it, the government will ask from industry, like, we don't really know, how do we do this?
Yeah.
It is good to respond to those as well, because that is, again, an opportunity to say, hey, look at me.
Yeah.
I'm out here. I can do this. I'm a small women-owned business. I'm a small disadvantaged business. When you have those socioeconomic status, especially with federal government, you want to take every opportunity to respond to those. And RFIs are less arduous than even an RFQ, because really you're just telling them, what you already know, and what your company can do.
And you can kind of tell them in any format, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of times they're very open-ended with how they ask the question.
They're not as bossy.
Yeah. Exactly.
They're just wanting you to tell them. They won't give you most times they won't give you a page limit, you know. And so you want to take advantage of those. So we did about 4 RFIs, about 3 RFPs, and then we hit like it's a lottery. We hit on that last one, but that last one was rough.
And I'll also say
for me working, it was a lot of hours.
I'm sure it was. And that RFI, the other thing I'll add is that it gives you an opportunity to shape what the requirement will look like,
Absolutely.
right? So in some industries, right, like we could take Pivotal, for example, right? Some folks might charge by the hour. Some folks might charge for a finished product. Some folks might, there's different things. So by you responding to the RFI and saying, you know what, we think it makes more sense if you charge by the hour, it is likely if a lot of people also say that, or if you're the only one who responds to say that, that's what the requirement will look like, which is better for you because that's your fee structure. So you don't have to change the way you're thinking, and you can say, yeah, that's what I thought. You know what I mean?
That's if you guys are listening, you can hear a theme is participate in this process. Don't set it and forget it.
Yeah.
Participate in this process. Respond to these RFIs, requests for informations. Send your capability statement. You're doing marketing when you're sending your capability statement.
It is marketing.
So it does, back to the point we were making earlier about some people get sticker shock. $150 an hour. Yes, but now my client is right now getting $80K a month after he pays for the facility, and that kind of makes me a little frustrated, but that's okay because I'm getting nothing. I'm done getting paid.
Yeah, exactly.
But again, going back to Casey's episode because I'm watching again. Sis said you gotta know your value.
Exactly.
You know, and so I've learned from that. I've grown, and I am moving on to a new fee structure. Like I said, something that's more congruent to the win, a percentage of the award amount.
Exactly.
But you do oftentimes, you meaning me, Kenely Consultant, and the client have to sow work.
Yeah.
And you know, that is not just an agricultural principle. Nope. It is a life principle. You sow and you reap. There's a time and a season for everything. And you know, but it's not a wave a wand and win.
Right.
You got to come to me ready with the right qualifications, and we'll work through that. And that, you know, so I can say, well, wait a minute, I don't know if we want to bid on this.
Right.
You know, they need to help. That's a 50 people, and what you got going on.
Right.
You know, and so we can work through that though and find requirements that are congruent to your skill set. But it's not. I'm making a point that Kenely Consultant, while we are fabulous and we are here for the win and we love to educate our client, it is not wave a wand and have success. You have to come in with the skill set, with the registration, with the intent, with the goal, with the ready to win. We're not going to just win because it's Kenely Consultant, although we do win.
Yeah. The other thing I'll add to that is like, you know, it's not only the 150 seems like a lot, right? But you're also learning in this process. Like she says, you sit down with her and she goes through the RFP and all that kind of stuff because her business model could have her putting herself out of business, right? Like if you have a somewhat detail oriented, I'm just saying, if you have a somewhat detail-oriented business person, right? Like when she's going through creating this punch list, you watching what she's doing, right? The next time you may not need her, and that's okay, right? But she got to make sure that she's charging her worth right now in this moment because she might not see it again.
Yeah,
I kid. She's not picking on me. She's helping me to grow.
Yeah,
and helping me to know my worth. And I've taken an L on going through that process and creating. I had a very bossy RFP. When I say bossy, they wanted to know everything down to what the business owners color their panties. Like it got real serious.
Oh wow!
I'm being facetious, but
still,
they wanted to know bank account information, all accounts, contact at the bank. I'm like, wait a minute, and they wanted audited financial statements. Now, if you have audited financial statements, why are you all in my bank account business? But nonetheless,
absolutely no reason.
They wanted that. They wanted, you know, a page number is typical, or a page limit is typical, but I mean just down to every specific detail. I don't mind that as a proposal writer because if it's one thing I can do is follow instructions. Shout out to Big Dorice, she taught me that. I learned from a lot of us, you know, not sparing the rod. You know? So I know how to follow instructions. So it's fine, but it's very intricate,
right?
And so I went through that. I went through all 79 pages. I created the punch list. Now they sent me the requirement because Kayla mentioned business development. there's a couple different facets to that. A part of services that I can provide is I can get to know your company and search out opportunities for you. But my current clients they'll search out opportunities, or they even have some companies that do it for them, and then they'll send it to me to write. So inherent in that process is the thought that you actually read the RFP. And I don't take that for granted. I read it with my eyes very thoroughly because I know that I have a skill set and some experience that my client does not. However, I do not expect to find something out in this process that you had no idea about. And that's what happened in this case where Candace was like, you're going to have to change what you're doing here. Because I sewed about 4 to 6 hours into the process of an RFP that they sent to me. And when I told them about these red herrings, I was like, wait a minute, they're asking for this and they asking for that, and I need these things from you. And they said, we can't do that.
Yeah.
And they were very apologetic. They
Apologies
were like, oh my God, I should have caught
4
that.
hours.
I'm sorry, I should have caught
Pull out
that.
my calculator.
And because I had worked with them before, this is something I learned. As long as we learn, then it's all good. It's when you don't learn that it's a problem.
Is it okay?
I had not had them to sign their agreement prior to me starting my punch list because, oh, by the way, they asked me to write this within 5 days. So I had done business with them before. I said, no problem. I began work so that we can meet the deadline.
Yeah.
And if I hadn't, I would have been screwed. But I got screwed anyway, so it doesn't matter. But
they didn't send her $750 worth of apologies. That's the part that she's trying
because
to hurry up and skip over.
I didn't invoice for it because I believe in being in having integrity in business, and because I had not had a signed agreement from them, I'll take the L on that. That's a lessons learned though. A lesson learned. You know what? We may as well not even. It's not an L lost. It's an L learned. And it won't happen again.
That's the best way to look at it.
Yeah.
So,
and I don't think they were disingenuous about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was an honest.
Yeah, it's something I won't be doing again.
Yeah, oversight. But that goes back to the whole thing. Like, a lot of people just don't know how to truly review these things, like the opportunities. Because, like I said, I can speak from experience because I used to, that was my second job out of college.
Okay,
and they put me in a position to, go out there and be that business development person, find the opportunities. And when I would look at our corporate profile, our capability statement, I would see the little bullets, the next codes and all that. So it's like, computer programming. I think that's one of them, one of the next codes. It is. So then I would go on there, do my little searches on Input or GOVT, FBO, the whole nine. Then I would see the little title that says computer, or I don't know, it might say computer firewall or something. And it's like, oh, computer. I know we can do this. And then it's like, we have no experience in this. Yes. You know what I'm saying? And it took me the first 2 to 3 months to really catch on. It's like, oh no, you really got to get detailed to see what exactly in the next codes or the capability do you do, because those next codes, even though it's a lot of them, they're still kind of broad.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And you got to drill down to know, like you said, with the help desk example.
Yes. You got to take a look at that RFP or RFQ, and like Kenely said, I'm taking for granted that people can whip that 79-page document open and just read. One part of it is reading. Y'all remember those RIF festivals we had in school? Reading is fundamental. It can help, but not to minimize my skill set and what Kenely said. There are going to be some things in there where it's like, what? And that's where a company like mine does come into play and is able to assist, because I'm strapping 17, almost 18 years on my back of not just federal government experience, but federal government acquisition, contracting experience. And so those are the things that, again, I do take for granted that I've been doing this for the last several years, but more than several. But for the first thing, read it, because with this particular client, it was not bogged down in government minutia or bureaucracy when it said audited financial statements.
Yeah.
You did not read that. You probably said 79. I think they did what you said you did at first. Oh, this fits our next code. Boom. Let me send it to Dorice. And Dorice earnestly begins to write, and she's like, oh no, we don't have that. Just like that.
Yeah. No, thank you.
Yeah.
No, thank you. Wow.
On an average, what's your average amount of hours that it takes to you know, and I know it ranges because, like you said, some of them are short, some of them are longer. But what's your average of hours that you put in from beginning
to end
to submission?
You know, like they teach us in our federal government contracting classes, it depends. No, but like Kaylin said, if it's an RFQ, for example, let's say, for example, it's a I did one actually for the city of Fairfax for a client. It was an RFQ. Mm-hmm. It was only a 10-page RFQ. Mm-hmm. So this is an example of how an RFQ, which is less arduous, which requires less most of the time, did run 8 hours. Okay. That's atypical though. That's not, you know, typically a nice 10-page RFQ could be something I really could knock off in like 4 hours. But this one was a little bossy in that it requested a specific work plan. Mm-hmm. And this is something that I know, back to your point about just saying, oh, just read it. Someone could have overlooked. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You know, when they ask for a work plan, you need to give them a work plan, even though you could overlook it and think that you're legitimate in doing so because it's just an RFQ. No, they asked for a work plan. Mm-hmm. You're going to need to give them that.
They said what they said.
They said what they said. And they didn't give a lot of detail on it either. So if you overlooked that and you didn't know what the government meant, how shall ye do this? Don't just tell us that you can and tell it and give us your past performance. No, we want a work plan for this requirement. So you got to read specifically what they've asked for in the statement of work or section C of a formal RFP. And then you have to respond to in my case, my company's specific work or work plan, detailed description on how they would carry it out. Gotcha. And that's something else that another humble brag. The company, they don't already have a work plan. I wrote the work plan, and that's just kudos.
What's a work plan?
That's kudos to me. How they are going to actually execute the task that are requested in the statement of work.
Okay.
Now, someone could say, well, you don't work there.
Yes.
How do you know? So I listen, like, this is one of my new statements is I don't always know, but I'll try. Yeah. Now I know government contracting. I don't work for their financial firm, nor did I major in finance. Yeah. But I have knowledge of government know-how. I mean, I'm intelligent enough. I pulled together a work plan and I gave it to them. I'm not intelligent enough. I'm very intelligent. No. I pulled together a work plan for their review to include in the proposal. You know, and these are the things that we don't always tout for ourselves. But I could have easily went back to them and say, how y'all plan on doing this? That could have been on the punch list, you know. And it actually was. They just didn't have a lot of detail. So I pulled this together.
Gotcha.
And I would argue that just as an RFQ is usually done with smaller acquisitions, right?
Yeah.
But smaller dollar value, and it's a good place to start. But I would also argue that they generally tend to be you are more likely to get thrown out of an RFQ than you are an RFP. That's true. The reason I say that is because the RFP is open-ended. So the government is looking for someone to propose to them how they're going to do there's a question that needs to be answered in the RFP. So we need this thing or this service, and we want you to tell us how your company would do it. How do we get to the intended outcome? An RFQ is, we know what we want. We want to know if you can do it. So what's your past performance? Can you do it? And how much you going to charge for it? And follow these rules. And so those things, because they're very strict, are more likely to get you thrown out if you don't do the thing or submit the form that I need. I ain't got time for it.
And then also, because it is a simplified acquisition, it has an accompanying simplified process. Like Candace said, the simplified process, you're more likely to get thrown out because it's a simplified process. You got to go through these 5 steps. On the negotiated procurement side, if we're talking FAR, I speak FAR. FAR Part 15, negotiated procurements, is a much elongated process, more open-ended process. Yeah, you know, and so we talked about the lower end where this was an RFQ, but it was a more involved RFQ for 8 hours. But the big proposal that I won that won $8.7 million, that actually took 100 hours.
8.7.
Yeah,
that took 100 hours. And I'm talking about hours. Like, you talking about stream chasers? This girl was chasing a stream. Let me tell you something. I would work the whole weekend. Oh, also, I'm the singlest girl that you ever did meet. So no kids, no marriage, right? So I would work the whole weekend. To the point of patting my foot, not wanting to get up from the computer to even use the restroom. Work the whole weekend up Sunday morning realizing that, oh, it's 5 a.m. I better take a nap before I sign on for my FTJ.
Yes.
My full-time job.
Exactly.
That makes
Chasing
me
a
mad
stream
for you.
and doing
Come
the
on.
work. Do you hear me?
14,000 only.
Stop it now.
Yeah, I can't get off
And
of
it's
that.
8.7 M's.
80K a month your man getting.
14,000 can be
Congratulations.
blown through so fast.
It's gone.
Yeah, it's like,
But that's okay.
Man.
From this point on,
Lesson
Kenely
learned.
Consulting is getting a
Doing.
percentage
Okay.
of the award amount.
And as soon as I'm not a contracting officer, as soon as I'm not signing these things, let me tell you about my second stream. I'm going to work for Kenely Consulting.
Actually, she's going to be on board sooner than she thinks. We're just going to make sure she doesn't
Listen.
do any proposals for DC, for the district.
Come on. That's all.
She can get in
Yeah.
on some other ones.
Come on.
1099. We're
Come
growing here at Kenely Consulting.
Exactly. Preach.
nah, I like that.
So we talked about you doing proposal writing, and you talked a tad bit about business development.
Right.
So now, how can I'm a small business. I've decided that I'm going to pay Kenely Consulting to write me a proposal. I found one that I liked. What do I do first? Do I need to bring you? Do I need to give you something?
Holler at your girl, first
Okay.
of all. Kenely Consulting at gmail.com. That's K, E is in Edward, N is in Nancy, E is in Edward, L is in love, Y, consulting, regular spelling, at gmail.com. Holler at me and we will talk and get an agreement in place.
Okay.
Contract agreement in place, so that you don't stiff me like one of my other clients did. No, get a contract agreement in place so that we can begin our business relationship, and I can read this here RFP or RFQ that you think your company is capable of, and I will take a look at your company's website capability statement so that I can have a cursory review of that and see how it marries up to the RFP, and then we push off from there. And if you got the skills, we got the win. Let's get out here and win some of these government contracts and grow these small businesses so that they're getting a piece of the pie.
Right. I agree. So something we learned today, and I just want to highlight, is the government is not going to pay you money if you've never done this work before, right?
Oh,
So
never
there's
ever. We're just out the gate here.
Yeah, there's a common
Yeah.
misconception that
Yeah.
I can sign up, they'll give me the money, and then I'll go do the work.
No.
It's not how it
Yeah.
works.
No.
Yeah.
That's not how you do the work.
Now, and let me say this: on the grant writing side, they're not governed by the FAR, the Federal Acquisition Regulation, so it's a lot less arduous. But even then, you have to stake a claim. So I do proposal writing for grants as well. You still have to stake a claim and state your claim as to how your work in the company and the work that your company does is for grants. It has to be for the greater good of the community.
Okay.
And you get to, at least in PG County, you get to tell the PG County government, hey, I think there's a need for this, and this is how my company can do it. You still need to be a registered business, legitimate business, able to do the work that you're describing to them that would better the community. But it's less arduous because you don't have to prove so much as your past performance as much as it is a need for what you're doing.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Exactly. Sometimes the grants will state what community you must be helping.
Yes, there you
right.
go.
So we're looking for someone to help young children, K through 12. We're looking for someone to help seniors. Sometimes it'll tell you, but sometimes it's really just open ended.
Yes. And so that's another great way to grow your business. But again, we're not waving a wand and just, oh yeah, now I'm a model, so can you give me some work? No, ma'am. Wait. What are we doing? Have you done this before? Do you have some like Casey said, do you have some technical skills in this?
Yes.
You know, then we can go from there.
Exactly.
So let's have a legitimate business. Let's have some learned, experienced skill set, and then let's go get the money. But let's absolutely go get the money because we can do this.
Come on.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah, I'm
You good?
I'm good.
Okay.
This is great.
I can always tell when we get to the end of the episode that Kaylin is thinking. Like usually, like his wheels by the time we get to the end of the episode,
It's been rolling.
I'm going upstairs. I'm gonna do this and this and this, and then I'm gonna do this. You can like literally see it on his face. Anyway, so Stream Chasers, that has been a wonderful episode with Miss Kenely. We appreciate her coming to join us. Again, she said you can reach her at kenelyconsulting@gmail.com, where she's going to do the things so that you can do the work for the government. Okay,
And make the money.
and make the money.
Get some of that 8 point something
$7
mil
million.
Exactly. And the
or,
government
or
be out
14 that Candace always like to throw up. No, because they're going to get them options.
in year one.
And year one,
right.
because that's
year
the thing.
one.
And once you win the big win, I'd like to say this: the government is very, very oftentimes going to exercise the option years on the contracts. The option years, the government reserves the right to continue business with you year over year because they most likely only appropriate money for that 1 year, right? So they reserve the right to do the next year and the next year and the next year. But more times than not, they're not going to go through the bid process again, so they just going to do the option. And it
unless you completely screw the pooch, you won't get those. You won't get that.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So the options are in there. Let's get the options, okay? Any Hoosers. So you can catch us on Apple, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, all the places.
All the places that you do any type of audio video on.
Okay, so www.streamchasers.work because Stream Chasers
do the work.
All right, and with that, you just got paid.
Just got paid.